Hi everyone, welcome to the lecture on research data, types, and data collection methods. Research is one of the most efficient and accurate methods for finding information about a specific topic. Business units use research to gather as much information about their industries, client, and performance to make solve problems, find answers, and decide the best way to handle a situation. Research data is any information that has been collected, observed, generated, or created to validate original research findings. It is a collection of facts and figures to be used for a specific purpose, such as a survey or analysis. If the facts and figures related to a particular or specific purpose are arranged in an organized form, then it is called as information. To analyze and make decisions about a certain business related to sales, purchases, etc., data can be collected. This collected data will help in making some conclusions about the performance of a particular business. So, data collection is essential to analyze the performance of a business unit, solving a problem, and making assumptions about specific things when required. Next, let us discuss about types of data. Data may be of two types, qualitative or quantitative. Qualitative data stands for certain traits or qualities. They show descriptions that can be observed but not calculated or computed. For instance, information on qualities like intelligence, honesty, wisdom, cleanliness, or originality gathered from a sample of a particular class students would be categorized as qualitative. They are exploratory in character rather than being definitive. Quantitative data can be measured and not simply observed. They can be numerically represented and calculations can be performed on them. For example, data on the number of students playing different sports from one particular class gives an estimate of how many of the total students play which sport. This information is numerical and can be classified as quantitative. It is important to know about data collection methods. Data collection. Depending on the source, data can be classified as primary data or secondary data. Primary data, these are the data that are collected for the first time by an investigator for a specific purpose. Primary data are pure in the sense that no statistical operations have been performed on them and they are original. Primary data is data that is collected by a researcher from first hand sources using methods like creative works such as painting, movie reels, music, etc. Then diaries, experiments performed by the researcher, letters, surveys, and census. Then even interviews. A primary source is collected directly from the original source. It is not clouded with someone else's views or judgments. Secondary data in research methodology is any information or statistics that researchers have already collected through their primary resources. Secondary data is readily available for other individuals to reference as they conduct their own primary research, allowing them to gain insights into different processes that contribute to the research process. Secondary research can have many advantages, and understanding them is important for knowing when it is most helpful to the researcher. When deciding whether to conduct secondary data, we need to focus on some of the advantages, such as secondary data can be less costly and time consuming. There could be a lot of data available. Next, let us see primary data collection methods. The first one is observation method. Observation method is used when the study relates to behavioral science. This method is planned systematically and subject to many controls and checks. There are several types of observations, such as structured and unstructured observation, controlled and uncontrolled observation, participant, non participant, and discussed observation. Next one is interview method. The method of collecting data in terms of verbal responses. It is achieved in two ways, such as personal interview and telephonic interview. First one, personal interview. In this method, a person known as an interviewer is required to ask questions face to other person. The personal interview can be structured or unstructured, direct investigation or focused conversation. In case of telephonic interview, an interviewer obtains information by by contacting people on the telephone to ask questions or views verbally. Third one is schedules. This method is similar to the questionnaire method with a slight difference. The enumerators are specially appointed for the purpose of filling the schedules. It explains the aim and objects of the investigation and may remove misunderstandings if any have come up. Enumerators should be trained to perform their jobs with hard work and patience. Next one is questionnaire method. In this method, a set of questions are mailed to the respondents. They should read, reply, and subsequently return the questionnaire. It has a specific goal to understand topics from the respondent's point of view. It consists of a set of written or printed questions with a choice of answers. The questions are printed in a definite order on a form. A good survey should have some specific features, like questionnaire should be of short and simple. It should follow some logical sequence, and it should provide adequate space for answers. Also, questionnaire avoid technical terms, and another important thing is you should have good physical appearance, such as color, quality of the paper, to attract the attention of the respondents. Second thing is secondary data collection methods. Secondary data is data collected by someone other than the actual user. It means that the information is already available and someone analyzes it. The secondary data includes magazines, newspapers, books, journals, etc. It may be either published or unpublished data. Published data are available in various resources, including government publications, public records, historical and statistical documents, business documents, technical and trade journals, then even encyclopedias, essays, newspaper, reviews, textbooks, and the like. Unpublished data includes diaries, even letters, unpublished biographies, etc. Typically, a researcher will begin a project by working with secondary data. This allows time to formulate questions and gain an understanding of the issues being dealt with before the more costly and the time consuming operation of collecting primary data. In the data collection process, questionnaire method plays an important role. So, let us deep dive into the concept of questionnaire. A questionnaire is a list of questions or items used to gather data from respondents about their attitudes, experiences, or opinions. Questionnaires can be used to collect quantitative and or qualitative information. Questionnaires are commonly used in market research as well as in the social and health sciences. For example, a company may ask for feedback about a recent customer service experience, or psychology researchers may investigate health risk perceptions using questionnaires. Next, questionnaire methods. Questionnaire can be self administered or researcher administered. Self administered questionnaires are more common because they are easy to implement and inexpensive. But researcher administered questionnaires allow deeper insights. First thing is self administered questionnaires. It can be delivered online or in paper and pen formats, in person or through mail. All questions are standardized so that all respondents receive the same questions with identical wording. Self administered questionnaires can be cost effective, easy to administer for small and large groups, anonymous and suitable for sensitive topics, self paced. But they may also be unsuitable for people with limited literacy or verbal skills, susceptible to a non response bias. That is, most people invited may not be complete, they may not complete the questionnaire. So, biased towards people who volunteered because impersonal survey requests often go ignored. So, these are all some of the bitter realities related to self administered questionnaires. Next one is researcher administered questionnaires. Researcher administered questionnaires are interviews that take place by phone or in person or online between researchers and respondents. So, researcher administered questionnaires can help the researcher ensure the respondents are representative of target audience. It allows clarifications of ambiguous or unclear questions and answers. Also, it has high response rates because it's harder to refuse an interview when personal attention is given to respondents. But researcher administered questionnaires can be limiting in terms of resources. They are costly and time consuming to perform, more difficult to analyze if the researcher have qualitative responses, and it likely to contain experimental bias or demand characteristics, and it likely to encourage social desirability bias in responses because of lack of anonymity. Third one is structured questionnaire. It is also known as a closed questionnaire where such questions are asked, which can be answered as yes or no. It includes less number of researchers and a large number of respondents, and it has definite and concrete questions. These types of questionnaires are formal and are prepared well in advance. Unstructured questionnaire. It is based on a more open questionnaire. An open questionnaire means recording more data as the respondents can point out what is more important for them in their own words and methods, as responses can go to any length. This type of questionnaire is quite flexible and can be applied to several areas of study as they do not require much planning and time. Next, let us see types of questions. Some of the widely used types of questions are open ended questions. Open ended questions help collect qualitative data in the questionnaire where the respondents can answer in a free form with little to no restrictions. Open ended or long term questions allow respondents to give answers in their own words because there are no restrictions on their choices, and the respondents can answer in ways that researchers may not have otherwise considered. For example, respondents may want to answer multi-racial for the question on race rather than selecting from a restricted list. For example, how do you feel about open science, or some questions like how would you describe your personality, and in your opinion, what is the biggest obstacle for productivity in remote work, and the like. Open ended questions have a few downsides. They require more time and effort from respondents, which may deter them from completing the questionnaire. For researchers, understanding and summarizing responses to those questions can take a lot of time and resources. The researcher need to develop a systematic coding scheme to categorize answers, and the researcher may also need to involve other researchers in data analysis for higher reliability. Next method is closed-ended questions. Closed-ended or restricted choice questions offer respondents a fixed set of choices to select from. Closed-ended questions are best for collecting data on categorical or quantitative variables. It also subject with some of pros and cons. Well-designed closed-ended questions are easy to understand and can be answered quickly. However, the researcher might still miss important answers that are relevant to respondents. An incomplete set of response items may force some respondents to pick the closest alternative to their true answer. These type of questions may also miss out on valuable detail. To solve these problems, the researcher can make questions partially closed-ended and include an open-ended option where respondents can fill in their own answer. Questionnaire can include open-ended or closed-ended questions or a combination of both. Using closed-ended questions limits the responses, while open-ended questions enable a broad range of answers. The researcher needs to balance these considerations with available time and resources. Next type is dichotomous questions. The dichotomous question is generally a yes or no closed-ended question. This question is usually used in case of the need for necessary validation. It is the most natural form of the questionnaire. Next one is multiple choice questions. Multiple choice questions are a closed ended question type in which a respondent has to select one or many responses from a given list of options. The multiple choice question consists of an incomplete stream. Right answer or answers, incorrect answers, close alternatives, and distractors. Of course, not all multiple choice questions have all the answer types. For example, the researcher probably won't have the right or wrong answer if the researcher looking for customer opinion. Next one is scaling questions. These questions are based on the principles of the four measurement scales, that is nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio. A few of the question types that utilize these scales: fundamental properties or rank order questions, Likert scale questions, semantic differential scale questions, and staple scale questions. Next one is pictorial questions. This question type is easy to use and encourages respondents to answer. It works similarly to a multiple choice questions. Respondents are asked a question and the answer choices are images. This helps respondents choose an answer quickly without overthinking their answers, giving the researcher more accurate data. Next, let us see qualities of a good questionnaire. There are some of the important points to keep in mind while drafting questionnaire. The first thing is question wording. Question wording can influence the respondent's answers, especially if the language is unclear, ambiguous, or biased. Good questions need to be understood by all the respondents in the same way and measure exactly what the researcher interested in. That is, it should be reliable and valid one. Next one is use clear language. The researcher should design questions with the target audience in mind. Consider their familiarity with the questionnaire topic and language and tailor your questions to them. For readability and clarity, avoid jargon or overly complex language. Don't use double negatives because they can be harder to understand. Next one is use balanced framing. Respondents often answer in different ways depending on the question framing. Positive frames are interpreted as more neutral than negative frames and may encourage more socially desirable answers. For example, should protests of pandemic related restrictions be allowed? Should protests of pandemic related restrictions be forbidden? Use a mix of both positive and negative frames to avoid bias and ensure that the question wording is balanced wherever possible. In case of unbalanced questions, it focuses on only one side of an argument. Respondents may be less likely to oppose the question if it is framed in a particular direction. It's best practice to provide a counter argument within the question as well. For example, do you favor? Do you favor or oppose? Do you agree? Do you agree or disagree that? So these are some of the examples. So in case of unbalanced questions, respondents may be likely to oppose the question if it is framed in a particular direction. Next thing is avoid leading questions. Leading questions guide respondents towards answering in specific ways, even if that's not how they truly feel, by explicitly or implicitly providing them with extra information. It is best to keep questions short and specific to topic of interest. Experts agree that a well balanced diet provides sufficient vitamins and minerals, and multivitamins and supplements are not necessary for or effective. Do you agree or disagree that multivitamins are helpful for balanced nutrition? Next thing is keep your questions focused. Ask about only one idea at a time and avoid double barreled questions. Double barreled questions ask about more than one item at a time, which can confuse respondents. For example, do you agree or disagree that the government should be responsible for providing clean drinking water and high speed internet to everyone? This question could be difficult to answer for respondents who feel strongly about the right to clean drinking water but not high speed internet. They might only answer about the topic they feel passionate about or provide a neutral answer instead, but neither of these options capture their true answers. Instead, the researcher should ask two separate questions. That is, do you agree or disagree that the government should be responsible for providing clean drinking water to everyone? And second question is, do you agree or disagree that government should be responsible for providing high speed internet to everyone? Yes. Next one is question order. The researcher can organize the questions logically with a clear progression from simple to complex. Alternatively, the researcher can randomize the question order between respondents. Logical order. Using a logical flow to the question order means starting with simple questions such as behavioral or opinion questions and ending with more complex, sensitive, or controversial questions. The question order that the researcher use can significantly affect the responses by priming them in specific directions. Question order effects or context effects occur when easier questions influence the responses to later questions, reducing the validity of the questionnaire. Next thing is order effects. While demographic questions are usually unaffected by order effects, questions about opinions and attitudes are more susceptible to them. Presidential approval rating are often influenced by any related previous questions or references to political situations. These ratings are lower if they follow relevant questions. It is important to minimize order effects because they can be a source of systematic error or bias in the researcher's study. Next one is randomization. Randomization involves presenting individual respondents with the same questionnaire but with a different question order. When the researcher use randomization, order effects will be minimized in researcher's data set. But a randomized order may be make it harder for respondents to process the questionnaire. Some questions may need more cognitive effect while others are easier to answer. So, a random order could require more time or mental capacity for the respondents to switch between questionnaires. These are all some of the types of questions. That's all. Thanks for watching. Thank you.